Welcome, everybody, and welcome to our online folks. My name is E.R. Anderson. I am the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. Thank you. We are 50 years old, and we are so excited to have this regular partnership with Samuel Ace called Meet Me There. It is a monthly intergenerational poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction experience. And this month's features are Dominic Anthony and W.J. Lofton. Yes, we had the pleasure already of celebrating W.J. Lofton's newest book um, with a almost sold out crowd. Come on in, y'all. You just got to skip rope over this. At the Auburn Avenue Research Library earlier in the month, and it was incredible. And we've just been so thrilled for his success with this beautiful book that you're going to get to hear poems from called Boy Maybe. But we are going to begin the way we always begin with a featured local poet. So I want to introduce you to Dominic. Dominic Anthony is a Southern Black queer writer whose work explores those identities, what it means to come of age at their intersections. A graduate of the Bachelor of Science in Nursing program at Arkansas State University, Dominic's work often reflects the care the caring nature of his profession while using imagery and language to create a bridge between the reader and himself. Working as a trauma nurse during the pandemic, they often credit poetry with saving their life during a time of collective global suffering. Ultimately, their goal is for the reader to be immersed in a shared experience where community is not only felt but also built. Some of their work has been published in Bible Belt Queers Zine 3, Beyond Queer Words, a queer anthology, and the Flava Zine Juneteenth edition. They also share their work on Instagram at Tony. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. Tony the Poet. Okay. Making sure. And Substack, Tony the Poet. So check that out. And I'm going to introduce our host, Samuel Ace. Samuel Ace is a transgender queer writer and sound artist. His latest books are I Want to Start by Saying, Our Weather RC, and Meet Me There, Normal Sex, and Home in 3 Days Don't Wash. Ace is the recipient of the Estrella Lesbian Writer Award and the Firecracker Alternative Book Award in Poetry, as well as a repeat finalist for both the Lambda Literary Award and the National Poetry Series. Recent work can be found in Personal Best, Makers on Their Poems That Matter Most, Essential Queer Voices of U.S. Poetry, Fence, Bathhouse, and the Texas Review, as well as We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetry and best American experimental poetry, as well as many other journals and anthologies. Sam's newest book, he will also be. Can you hold up Sam's newest book, which actually, yes, I want to start by saying it's right there and is available for sale. And our person of the hour is W.J. Lofton, a Chicago born poet and Alabama raised multimodal artist. He is the author of A Garden for Black Boys Between the Stages of Soil and Stardust, and his newest collection, which we're celebrating tonight, Boy Maybe. He is a recipient of the Ava DuVernay LEAP Grant and an artist-in-residency at 100 West. He's earned fellowships from Canem and Emory University. His work has been featured or forthcoming in Time, Wildness, Obsidian, Scalawag, Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, American Poets Magazine, Prose to the People, No Justice, No Peace, from the Civil Rights Movement, Black Lives Matter, and film festivals nationwide. Lofton's constant concern is liberation and its lived manifestations, the personal, political, and collective. He resides in Atlanta, Georgia, where he co-curates Rebellion, a Writing Salon, alongside Dominic Anthony Williams. So welcome to you all. Thanks to everyone for being with us.
Hi, everyone. So glad to see you and that you came out on this night. We try to do in-person readings. We don't always because we often have people from out of town, but tonight I'm so happy that you're here and that we can be here in person with you. As ER just said, this is the monthly reading series, Meet Me There at Charis, and it features work by queer and trans authors who are bringing new books and creative energy into the world. As, as well, when we can, to bring in emerging local writers, which is a very important part of this series. I want to thank E.R. Anderson, also Abeo, and really the whole Charis staff who have championed this series from the beginning. Abeo is the programming director and has been a wonderful help in making these readings possible. ER also mentioned that Charis has just celebrated its 50th anniversary, which is amazing for an independent bookstore. And all the books from, well, DJ's book is here, signed copies, and authors from our past, from all the past readings, the Meet Me There series are here as well. So please buy books here at Charis. Dominic Anthony is our opening poet, and again, W.J. Lofton will follow in celebration of their new book, Boy Maybe. It was launched, what was it, just 2 weeks ago? Here in Atlanta. Unfortunately, I was traveling at the time, so this is kind of a selfish reading that I get to feature WJ here tonight. And, you know, why not? It's just nothing short of joy to celebrate this book again. And even if it's so close to the launch, it's National Poetry Month, and we really can't celebrate poetry, WJ, Dominic, enough. In Boy Maybe, Lofton tells us, quote, "The body decides, trying is prayer." As an introduction to both these poets, I want to briefly explore the vulnerability and the faith expressed in WJ's and Dominic's words. I first read WJ's poems almost 2 years ago when he appeared on the series opening for the poet Dior Stevens. Back then, I immediately found a sacred spiritual calling in their work and went on to remark, this is what I said then, what stays with me is WJ's insistence on paying attention to beauty, joy, sensuality, and the spirit without ignoring the everyday reality of living in a Black queer body. Reading the entirety of Boy Maybe has only strengthened that belief. I also find that kind of vulnerability and faith in Dominic Anthony's recent work. He says, touch is sight, gender is less, feel be dark, sex is most. Lofton and Anthony's work follows in the tradition of the great Essex Hemphill, whose book I saw in the back is for sale, the reprint of his amazing book, his amazing collection of poems. And Essex begins his poem American Wedding with these words. In America, I place my ring on your cock where it belongs. Although it could, this glorious poem does not end with its explicit and direct insistence on Black gay desire, but goes on to claim the political weight of the act. The poem ends with these words. They don't know we are becoming powerful. Every time we kiss, we confirm the new world beginning. This is a statement of faith that a new world is possible, constructed by the reality of desire and love and self-regard in the face of erasure. And we know that today we are experiencing yet another eruption of extreme erasure in this country and in other places worldwide, where whole categories of histories and personhoods of Black, brown, indigenous, trans, gay people are targets of extreme violence and erasure. The current tools are ubiquitous and vicious. Hemphill, brilliant Black and gay, who died of AIDS in 1995, certainly understood the fatal claw of erasure. He was also, I believe, just beginning to understand the potential reach of cyberspace, as he called it, but perhaps could not quite imagine the end game. In Hemphill's words, they do know we are becoming powerful. His they most certainly refers to the individuals, governments, and institutions that seek to oppress, suppress, punish, and rewrite history. Now that the same they has access to our lives and expression in ways that were not possible in the early 90s when American Wedding was first published, we are more wildly visible than ever before. We've shouted our words, We've published, we've excavated, and brought into visibility histories that were previously erased, invisible, and neglected. We've filmed police killings and abuse. We've expressed our joy, our rage, our incredibly diverse genders, and our sexualities. We've held little back. Bots pick out the words gay, trans, diverse, equal, equality, immigrant, Black, lesbian, and so many more descriptors we've used to claim our identities, from here to the end of the known internet, past and present. There is danger, yes, and danger has always been a blunt reality for certain bodies. Here I quote Audre Lorde from her essay, Eye to Eye, which echoes Hemphill. Quote, I know the anger lies inside of me like I know the beat of my heart and the taste of my spit. It's easier to be furious than to be yearning, easier to crucify myself in you than to take on the threatening universe of whiteness by admitting that we are worth wanting each other. In the face of this onslaught of surveillance and erasure, I do find Lorde's refrain, we are worth wanting each other, in the work of the two poets here tonight. It's a faith, not a faith that everything will turn out okay, for so many lives end in unnecessary suffering and death. But Lofton and Anthony assert that they, in Black queer desire, are worth wanting each other. Again, these are Lofton's words. The body decides trying is prayer. Here, prayer is action, a faith in the knowledge and direction of the body in community, in shared survival. This work does not look away from abuse, from injustice, the harsh realities of the past, or the very present horrors unfolding before our eyes. Despite the forces allied against it, this work also calls to beauty and joy. In the midst of so much wrong, gratitude is hard work. But these two poets constantly seek and find much to be grateful for without looking away from the ruins. So with that, Dominic, thank you.
Hi. So I was given the choice to stand or sit, and I kind of like my outfit, so I'm going to stand. All right. So like we were just talking about, my name is Dominic Anthony, and I'm a poet here from Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Arkansas. And I am very, very, very honored to be opening for W.J. Lofton and Samuel Ace. And it's interesting, we were just talking about the constant battle with Blackness and asserting your humanity, and humanity can often be found, or we attempt to find it, in our desire and our love for one another. So with that, my first poem is actually a love poem. So it's called Dig Where the Catfish Burrow. Press the softest parts of your lips against my sunburned shoulders. We are sky-singed, velvet-skinned men, brave enough to cock our hips. Limp gristle, wrists flung forward, tip, 2 fingers dipped in a Vaseline jar. Love me joyful, with this fat sucked from dinosaur bones. You say, too much has ended to not be where our feet are. I say, nothing starts unless we let our minds wander. So meet me in the middle with a fast heart and slow hands. That is the only way to love a boy as soft as Mississippi mud. Remember, when sun-dried riverbeds appear barren, dig where the catfish burrow, and we'll find water again. Thank you. So this next poem is a little bit autobiographical. The only time I really believe in telling my business is in poetry. So, so this one is called Birthing Babies. I fell into this world through the belly of a child. As summers end, as the cotton bloomed and the city chilled, she, swollen ankles and acne, paused between rusting lockers, knocking my foot from her lung. The smell of lead and the filleting sound of scuffed rubber could not dampen the stares. Her breath, light and anxious, her fingers tracing the outline of a belly too swollen to hide underneath sweaters. Regret would sputum itself on the back of her tongue, sour than a morning sick. But making something was the first time in 15 years of living her body felt like hers. So she kept it. To bring something into being amidst all that judgment, she took that shame, siphoned it from the placenta, made it into the best love she knew how, discarded the rest, called it afterbirth. And once the grown man between her legs, this one invited, finished pulling me out of her, she sat squatting, gown open, revealing the raw and swollen slinking off a rangy frame. It made a splatter she hoped would drown out the whispers of nurses about the child mother. Poor, pretty little thing. Her or the baby, she still does not know. But a hospital bed was better than a toilet in a school gymnasium, so she gathered her spill parts off the mint green floor. Birthing babies has always been tiring work, though children are resilient. So before the blood on her thighs had even dried, she was up crib-side, uttering a phrase that made her giggle. She had only ever said it while playing just the summer before. I'll be the mama. So this next poem is called Sincerely Prometheus. I'm sure most of you are somewhat familiar with the Greek myth of Prometheus stealing fire and bringing it to men. So I kind of played around with that a little bit here. So this one's called Sincerely Prometheus. To the men I have touched fire for, I saw you bumbling around in the dark. Dilated eyes and extended hands made you appear helpless. So when you made your way to me, I thought, how deserving you are to have made it to this place. And I decided to bring to your earth, through frivolous frictions, labor's first reward, a spark. Hand in hand, we rubbed two sticks together over dried bush with pursed lips. No life could be made this way, but something else that breathed and grew and moved. Though I showed you it must be tended, lest smoke snuffs it out, I did not say it out loud. I thought, a mind full of longing must be full of keeping too. And as you learned to heat your oils and meats, your jaw shrank and your brain grew. I thought, no more need for all that tearing. What a gentle thing you will become. Impatience, however, showed you beating rocks together would bring flames without calluses. Ambition turned warm huts into lit cities, and I lost you in the goings and comings of progress. The shining of what you became eclipsed the burning of what I was. Tenderness begat tender, and a miracle begat mundane. Eulogies given at blessings, death domain justice, just as divine, and I paid alone. At the sentencing, I looked for you, but you were too busy combusting to notice my warmth was gone. Look now, how buzzards orbit an open belly. A balding head enters and stretches in the way love used to. Blotting shades offer fleeting respite from the sun, a mercy. Feathered devourers plucking a liver devotionless, a mockery. And this one is kind of a follow-up to the birthing baby. So this one will be my last poem. And it's a two-part poem. The second part is a duplex. So I'm really excited to be playing around with form. I really do enjoy form. My Virgo, very cerebral, analytical brain likes to, have some confines to reel it in. So this one is called Mama Wants Her Baby Back. Mama wants her baby back. Part 1. Mama wants her baby back, and the neighborhood cracks in half. They ain't never lost a black boy to love. Part 2, a duplex. Mama wants her baby back. Baby does not know how to be wanted. Baby knows how to want. Mama does not know how to have. Mama does know how to be wanted. Men want mama and baby. Men want mama and baby in the same way. Baby does not know how to be wanted by men yet. Baby does know how being wanted by men shames you. Shame is want without love. Love don't know baby without shame. Mama only knows how to shame. Mama only shames what she don't know how to love. Mama wants to love her baby back. Thank you, guys.
Wasn't that amazing? Okay, so I'm gonna start off with first of all, y'all look good. Thank y'all for coming out to hear some poems. Um, Charis means a lot to me. Thank you, Yar. Thank you, everyone, for supporting this book and this work. Dom, Samuel, it's a pleasure. So let's get to the poems. I'm going to start with a poem that's not in the book, and I'm going to time travel backwards in the poems. So this poem, it will populate. It's called While You're Breathing. Look at this bronco galloping through fog, wearing it off the shoulder. The tire split possum, its salt and pepper nightgown pulled by hawks, maggots. This still horse smiles still. Can you believe it? Smiling as second nature. Look at this, the past, the present, and futures. The driver, the passenger princess, little trees, black ice behind us, a mill town built in a valley's thigh, one brick laid on top of another, a theater flickering war movies. It's like we're in the skull of a machine gun, looking for the exit, searching for the wake up button in the rearview mirror. Our hunger's answer gutted and hung, a deer skinned to its pink warmth. We left something, but can't quite remember what. What? Look at this. Not the bedroom, not the backyard thick with trees, but the kitchen, down the sink, vinegar, baking soda, clearing the pipes in the end, water. Water would be the last thing we ask to forgive us. Asking for miracles. I hear him say underneath his breath, I'm dropping off your sweater. The orange one with the pocket so big I planned on placing our futures inside. The bull mastiff not yet bought. Milk on baby's breath. Our giggling fag friends doing 8 counts at our wedding. He does not say what I need to hear. I did not wait in the rain with you. He can't look me in the eyes without thinking how long I held another man's hand before telling him our anniversary unballooned and drained of its confetti. He finds himself asking for miracles, for the tumor to shrink in his mother's breast, for the picture above his bed to swing counterclockwise, bringing his ghost lover back, for water to rinse the dirt off the body exhumed from the grave. He hears me say underneath my breath, someone's got to make it out alive. How y'all feeling? Y'all all right? Yeah. Teresa, what's your request? Okay. We have a request. Okay. Dominium. Under God's chapped lips sighing, under sky opening into more sky, under horses afire, under a church darkened by dead light, under Alabama's lazy eye, under power lines producing no power, touch strikes, under a shared blanket between cousins. Under his breath, he does not have to whisper what is known. Under his mother's roof, his hands are allowed to be anything toward me. Steel hooks, bullets whistling toward game. Under the hill, heat borrows flesh and replaces it with a scar. We're gonna make it through this. It's all right. All right. Already flesh. We know what is true. Christ did not destroy the stone, he rolled it. Turned over on a Sunday, I met a boy's back, beginning an early morning beg. Claw at me here. His nose carries a hook a juror once knew. Believe it or not, the men grew gorgeous after I stopped looking for them to be perfect. We can make love without the bed.
So, what I was talking about in the beginning, in my introduction, that you both write into desire as a parallel accompaniment to injustice, to life, to really everything. Can you speak more to that, and how desire can also be an accompaniment to anything in poetry?
For me, I write about desire because it was a journey for me to discover that I had the right to desire. And when I say that, I mean because I grew up and I was not out. I was very, very scared to step into that. And I think because of how I grew up in a very hyper-religious household and also secondary to some sexual trauma, I was told that the desires that I was having were related to that. So for so long, I did not feel like I had the right to desire. I felt like desire, when it came up to me, was this very scary thing. And I think that takes so much humanity away from us when we don't feel like we have the right to desire or the right to be desired. And that could be desired sexually, that could be desired, and your ambitions, what you want out of life, just desire, period. And I think that for me, writing about it really helps me take that ownership of it, to see the beauty in my own desire and to see the beauty in my own desirability.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about desire in a way that allowed me to investigate things. I'm curious, and so I just follow my desire as a pathway to curiosity, and I want to understand like what my life has been, and that's the root of my desire and where my life is going, and I desire to understand those around me, and that's the root of my work. And that's why I write into the core of pain, because I do know that we all have been in pain before. And I do know that we are all interested in not feeling that way. And so I'm writing hopefully to not only understand pain, but to understand something else and to possess something else. I think about writing this book, and it's in some ways very devastating, but I had to write this so I could write about something else. Because I desired to write about something else and desired to have a different experience and a different understanding.
That makes a lot of sense. And I also think that following and being honest about our desire is, it opens up the world, honestly. And obviously there's such a deep tradition in gay, lesbian, black, queer writing in following desire. And in that, the world is opened up. I truly believe that in my own work, and I hear it in both of your works.
I have a question for you, Sam.
No.
So you write about your father who's passed, and you write about the relationship with your your grandkids and how that, can you talk about the desire there in those relationships?
Yeah, family is complicated, very complicated, and my coming out and my being a trans person in the world was not easy for my family, and it wasn't easy growing up either. I was, it really had to hide, and I identify a lot with what you were talking about, Dominic, and as a result, I kept a lot of those things secret. I found writing, language, the blank page was a place that I could express myself. My father was an important person in my life, and probably in my family, the person who I felt most connected to, or he got me in that way. But as I said, it was complicated, and there, I am now a father, I'm a dad to a very young child, and I'm also have a godchild, and children have been important. I actually taught kids for a long time, and just being able to see and feel the openness and what kind of unrestricted love can actually be, and acceptance. I feel like it heals me as much as I feel it's there for them. They're a great teacher. My own child is a great teacher, and children in general are great teachers. I'm humbled by them, challenged by them very much, and I find again, it's, watching them at this point, growing into this world, is terrifying to me in so many ways, and yet I also feel like spiritually there's a reason that children come into the world and have a great, I don't want to make this, something kind of Pollyannish, but I do feel that there are spirits that have come into the world that are going to move us forward. I don't know if that answered your question. Just circling back to desire and writing and writing about sex too, as certainly a fit subject for poetry. I've always believed that, and not the kind of flowery, romanticized version of sex, but I think about that quote from Hemphill, or about writing about sex, but feeling that that is a political act. It's always been very much a part of how I thought, the communities I came into. Do you want to both talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my book is very, I get into
sexy.
it. It's sexy. I wanted to write a sexy book because I wanted other queer people to know this is normal, for one, and also you deserve pleasure. And also thinking about pleasure in this way of liberation, like being able to practice pleasure with your partner, whoever you are practicing pleasure with, and with yourself most importantly. Wherever you allow yourself to have access to also speaks to the steps you are willing to go towards accessing freedom in other ways. And I just wanted to dare myself to write about those things and to see what spaces I was willing to activate in myself, and also not make a caricature out of intimacy, not make it pornographic, but make it real and make it sacred. Not make it, but allow it to be sacred, to enter it, understanding that what I am sharing with myself and with another person It is divine, and we are practicing a politic. Consent in that it's a politic. What we are interested in performing in that space is a politic, and that transcends just the sexual. It manifests itself in so many other ways, and so pleasure for me is principle. Hello, Janet Jackson.
I wish I could remember who said the quote, but it was everything in the world is about sex except for sex. That's about power. And I think that just kind of reigns true a lot of times, unfortunately. And I think that for me, the ownership of my sex was about like a reclamation of power, a reclamation of identity. And unfortunately, if you are in a marginalized community or marginalized space, your sex is often one of the things that is the most marginalized. So yeah, I think writing about sex for me is interesting because I like to write about it a little bit more metaphorically. And then sometimes I kind of surprise myself by like how graphic it can be because I can be kind of a prude sometimes. But I enjoy it. I enjoy surprising myself. I enjoy like WJ said, you know, whether it's with yourself, which I believe is one of the most important sexual relationships you will have, is the one that you have with yourself, or whether it's with your partners. It can be a very freeing space if you are open and you talk about it and you practice a certain politic with your sex.
Are there questions up here?
I'll bring you the mic.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear me? I'm interested that it seems like there's sort of two depictions of desire, sort of as an internal emotion and also as an external force that we engage with. How do you think the way you interact with those two depictions of it varies depending on the theme of the poem?
So for me, if I understand your question correctly, the internal struggle with desire, for me that is kind of like when I'm struggling with a sense of self, right? Or a sense of like how I view myself or how I show up or how I feel to be desirable. And that is more of when I'm interacting with a poem in that way, that's more of an internal process, or I don't like to say problem, but more of an internal issue that I'm kind of like trying to chew through with my poetry, as opposed to if I'm writing about the external desire, it is more of a connection or like maybe like a communal relationship. When I am digging through a poem and I'm talking about desire internally or like how it's showing up inside of my body, that is more of an exploration of self. And then when in my poetry, when I'm talking about external desire, I'm talking about sex with another person, that's more of a bid or me kind of thinking about how I connect to others. So one, I guess, is connection to myself, and the other one is how I'm connecting to others.
Yeah, I think for me, similar, it's like just about connection, but primarily to myself. Even when I'm connecting with another person, it's still about me in a way, because I'm expecting it to be about them for them. And so I'm assuming that there are two whole people arriving with their internal desires and pleasures to perform those desires. They're not separate for me. It's just, it performs in the same way in my mind.
I got you.
Y'all are so gifted and talented and beautiful. And I wanted you to talk to me about music. I think, yes, there's this desire, there's like intense movements of image, but they're always like in tow with a particular like poetic music. And so I wanted you to talk about sound and how you think about sound in your poetics, how you think about music, relationship to image, relationship to the content,
So I'm very interested in jazz. You know, Alice Smith carried me through writing this book, and Jason Moran. And I love the absences that jazz has, and then the collision of other instruments to make one unified sound. And I experiment with spacing and meter in certain ways where you have to breathe with the work. I'm very fascinated in the poetry being active, and that's why music allows me to activate the words on the page in a different way. And also sometimes when I'm writing, I'm listening to just instrumentals. I'm just listening to the traffic. I'm borrowing sounds from around me to create these scenes that I'm seeing in my mind. So that's why it's so cinematic. Yeah, so yeah, that's where I'm at.
It's funny because we kind of talk about this often. We are so different when it comes to music. I am not a musical person, I would say. I can't, I don't know what a melody is, like it just all sounds the same in the background to me. I digest music lyric first. And so that's how I interact with music always, lyric first. So like I'm in the gym in the morning listening to the saddest song you ever heard in your life. And it's just because like the lyrics are just so beautiful. And I think that may be why my poems sound musical, is because I am interested in pacing. I'm interested in the delivery of the words and how that delivery draws an emotion out of you. But as far as the musicality, like it just all sound the same in the background to me. And I wish it didn't. I wish I knew what y'all were talking about when y'all. Like, I want to be in on the joke, but.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because it's also very much, as I heard both of you, you are a musician. I'm sorry. Whether you know it or not, it's there. And WJ, both of you are really singers. And I really felt it so deeply in your work.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna switch your mics,
Okay,
because
yeah.
that one sounded real quiet.
It is. I would like to be amplified.
I want you to be amplified.
Thank you very much.
So
I
give me 1 sec to switch them
Okay.
over. Okay, go for it.
Am I amplified? Oh,
Ooh,
I
yeah.
am. This is what I like. Okay. So this question is for all three of you all. So if we think about design.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay. If we think about desire as the extension of the self, outside of what we might need, right? Is desire in and of itself, do you all think desire is queer? Being that if we're like governed by norms and we're like moving against that, and if desire is like an extension of the self, right, and going against those norms, like is desire queer? Like, do you all think that? That's it.
I think that if desire is flowing, it's queer, because desire does not put you in like a box or a prison. It asks you to follow a path that extends you beyond what you kind of know sometimes. It's not a prison. I do know that. So therefore it can't be straight. It must be queer.
I think desire is absolutely queer, and I think that if we need any proof, it's just that society tries to shame it. So I think because desire is queer is why society shames it.
I agree. That's all I have to say. Yeah, just in the sense that the kind of normal descriptions of gender and desire are so boxed. And, queer poets forever have been writing about desire in the most honest ways, the messiness of it, which I'm really interested in reading. You know, not the romanticized version of it. And it's just as, if it's written well, it's just as real as any other thing we pay attention to. So, and queer writers have been doing that.
Hey y'all. So you talked about desire almost in this very freeing way. But I want to hear you guys talk a little bit about desire and the dance that it plays with grief. Because because we know that a lot of times the desire is born out of grief, or they hold hands really closely. So I kind of want to hear you guys talk about that and how that shows up in your work, and kind of how you work through that.
So the book is devastating because it's also always desiring. You know, we encounter phantom parents. You know, I'm thinking through my relationships with people who are deceased and have been deceased most of my life. And also just like grieving people who are alive and wanting, or just thinking through relationships. And I think that desire with grief means that I must be imaginative to continue to collaborate with in a relationship that sometimes feels one-sided. And trusting that with rituals and with honest attempts to reach for the dead, that they will reach back somehow. And so that must mean that I must always have my eyes open for signs. I must always be willing to be touched. That's what it means for me.
I think grief at its very core is a pain because we do not have what we want in that moment. Regardless that if that is a loved one that has passed, a relationship, a longing, we are feeling this pain because what we truly desire, we do not have. It's the absence of it. It's the absence of what we desire. And so it is this dance, you know, that happens, and it's strange because I think there's sometimes that I've been in the heat of desire and have experienced grief. You know, I think they're so closely connected that in our brains sometimes they touch in these very strange ways, in these very like unexpected times. You know, you hear about people like crying during sex, or like, you know, there's these very deeply intimate moments that you have, and you're like, oh well, why am I sad? So yeah, I think grief at its very core is this longing for something you do not have, and I think they are very, very closely connected in the brain and in the body.
I mean, what's more profound than being seen? And in desire or sex, if it is somehow the most intimate way, obviously, of being seen, and when that happens, one is so vulnerable, and we experience it so rarely that it feels to me that it, like you were saying, that it kind of pings this place of yearning, you know, to be that open and seen, really, all the time, which we're not. We're defended, we have these walls that we perform ourselves, you know, we do all of this stuff that's in the way, but, you know, I think, I love what you just said about those two places being so deeply connected in the brain. And for me, it is that yearning and the grief one feels when it's not there, when that connection is not there.
Hi, thank you so much for y'all's meditative presence. And my question is about your practice. I would love to hear more of your writing practice, and especially what do you do when you face disappointments or quote-unquote failures or lessons learned?
So I've recently have started submitting, so I'm a lot newer to this, and you do get faced with a lot of rejections. And me and one of my friends we kind of do this thing where we kind of collect rejections and we just kind of send them to each other, and that's been kind of fun because it's like, oh girl, I got another one.
It's a mistake.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But also, I think it has just kind of helped me deal with rejection in the world. It sounds so cliche, but a lot of times it is just a redirection. It's just not the place for you. It's not the place for your work. It's not the place for your poetry. As far as my process goes, I'm just getting used to editing. So I'm like now revisiting some poems that I wrote out, and I'm kind of editing and then playing with language and playing with punctuation and spacing. And also, I tend to write my best work in the bathroom. It's strange. Like right before I get in the shower, or like just looking in the mirror is when I get my most inspired. But I also think it's because my work and my life, I am interacting with people all day long, and I think sometimes that's the only moment that I kind of get a little bit of respite or a little bit of like, oh, this is isolating and isolating in the best ways. So.
It's changed recently as a practice. I used to, before I had a kid, I'd get up early in the morning, and like very early, and when I had a full-time job, I'd work. I don't even feel that space was kind of sacred. It wasn't work so much, but just giving myself a chance to write first thing in the morning. That's changed lately, but so I kind of fit it in places that I can, and the practice itself is really important. I'm kind of have aspects of ADHD, so getting myself to just sit, and I'm so relieved when I am actually there, and it's there, and I give myself like 15 minutes even, to just sit with anything that comes. This book that just came out, I gave myself a prompt. I want to start by saying, and every sentence in the book starts with that. It's and it was a way, I write about writing process in that book, among many other strands, and for me it was a way of sliding into saying whatever came, whatever, and that belief, that sense of, it's not always, believe me, whatever comes, it's not always great, or often not, but it also is faith in that I have something to say, and you have something to say, and that my perspective on things, unfettered by getting in the way, or I'm getting in the way, that getting myself out of the way is kind of the biggest, sometimes the biggest task. So those minutes, even if using a timer. I have a friend who, when I taught, she was a visiting writer in my class, and one of the things she said, she's a wonderful writer. She uses this. It's kind of a horrible website. It's called The Most Dangerous Writing App. Anybody hear of that? Well, it's kind of a built-in timer. It's online. So what happens is that you can set a time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. If you pause for any length of time, if you think too much, or if you stop for 2 seconds, everything disappears. I know, this is the reason. This is the reaction. But that's the reaction my class had. But I'll tell you, for me, and I would suggest trying it if you feel like taking a risk, because it gets you out of the way, and it lets the deeper stuff come out. And maybe that most of it is garbage or nothing you want to go back to, but I guarantee there will be things in there that will surprise you and that you never would have expected.
Yeah, I think my primary mode is listening first. I'm always around such smart people, and I just like listening to people talk, and also just listening to people talk about their lives, because that's what they're brilliant at. People possess their own brilliance, and I enjoy listening to people, and that's because I value people. And after I listen to people, I allow myself to be odd, to be like, wow, like this person is extraordinary. And then somehow, whatever they have said, it will come back to me, and it will help carry the poem. Poetry for me is an observation of gratitude about how much can you see in a moment. What are you smelling right now? What are you feeling? What do you see? For me, it's about gratitude. And so my practices is based off being amongst people and loving people and being grateful that I am there breathing with them.
You are a really good listener, and you do that often. Like where you like pay out your phone, you like putting in your notes or something. I see it all the time.
Thank y'all for letting me write this book.
But I do kind of want to try that exercise. I'm not going to try that website. I'm not going to do that. But I would like to do that because I do kind of get in my own way. Like I want every line to be perfect before I can put it down, and I think that kind of stops me sometimes from wanting to from writing. But yeah, and also to just piggyback off what you said, I think I deal with anxiety by grounding. And so you'll see a lot of imagery in my poetry, and that's because I'm constantly trying to ground myself. So I'm trying to involve all my five senses. Like, how does my steering wheel feel? How does this smell? How does this taste? How does this, what am I hearing right now? To kind of ground myself in the moment, and then they kind of cement themselves in my brain. And then when I'm trying to convey a certain emotion, I remember how I felt in that moment that I was trying to ground myself, and then I can use that to kind of tie. And I think that also allows me to bring the reader into my poem and to really have them sit there with me, because I have all these textures. Like my poem is so textured, and you can feel what I feel or see what I see.
Well, I think we're probably close to the end of our time tonight. Was there?
You got one more question?
One more question.
Got it. Okay.
I guess this question would be for WJ. If I'm not mistaken, you said you are, or I heard that you were raised in Alabama?
Yes.
I was just wondering where. My daddy used to take us to church out in Seal, so,
Yeah. So I was raised in Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, small town. And then I went to school at Troy University. I lived in Auburn for a while.
Okay.
I've been in most places in Alabama. My best friend lives in Birmingham.
Okay.
So yeah,
That's what's
I'm
up.
always repping Alabama.
Okay. I'm from Columbus, Georgia, so
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
But how does that materialize in your work, would you say?
The red mud, right? The red clay, the food, the sweet tea, and also there's this poem where we're talking about front porches and how they lean, but that's just talking about how the neighbor, the nosy neighbor, but the caring neighbor. I'm always thinking about place and how that adds texture, even through the music that I try to incorporate into the poetry and the Southern writers that I read. So the South, particularly Alabama and Georgia, they're very important to me.
That's one of my favorite poems in the book, by the way.
It's one of those.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks to everyone online.
Thank y'all for being with us. Thank you, Sam, for always curating such a beautiful, amazing offering of poets. And we want to let folks who are physically here know that we have books for sale, and you can go grab one up at the front where Veo is and bring it back here, and WJ will sign it. We also have Sam's books for sale. Eventually we will have Dominic's books for sale. And for books online, you can click the teal button at the bottom center of the screen to buy Boy Maybe from us online. Actually, wait, I lied. You can't do that, but you can call the store. The good news is that we have been selling WJ's books like hotcakes, and they are currently sold out on Ingram, which is the big distributor that serves all the independent bookstores. So we have them in the store, and we will gladly send them to you online, comrades. But that link isn't going to work right now because it goes straight to our distributor. So call us or email us, and we'll get the book to you. We thank you so much for being with us. We're very glad. It's a great thing that it is selling out fast, and we're having to get them direct from Random House. So thanks everybody for being here, and WJ, you'll just stay put, and folks will come to you. All right, thanks, guys.